Peoples, what's good? Yes, I have on a hat. No one's used to me having on a hat. But anyway, good evening, everyone. This is BIGCED, the industry cosign, and the purpose of this program is well, the name of the program is "My Friends Are Better Than Yours." If you haven't seen this before, and until you prove it to me, my friends are better than yours. And I have one of them here today. The funny thing with this particular guy, we haven't really talked like literally in years outside of social media posts and like how you doing type of things. Even I just ran into him and it hurt a couple weeks ago. Um, like I said, the purpose of this is because I've been doing this for years, and I'm sick of speaking to celebrities outside of my celebrity friends because it is what it is. But and I figured that I want to actually showcase and basically brag about my friends who have been doing things for years and still continue to do things. And I have a lot of them. So it's like I have more friends than I have celebrities. So I guess it's a bigger pool to choose from. But I have my man, the Black Spot.
Yo,
We go back years and we'll get into it. So what I'm going to do is allow you to, I guess, briefly introduce yourself because I don't know what you do, but I just know that I didn't have anybody for scheduled, so I couldn't. I said, why not? But let me stop. My man, the Black Spot. What's good, sir?
what up, man? Well, my name's the Black Spot. Well, that's the name I write under most of the times, but my full name is Larry the Black Spot Hester. Not my mom given name, but and what I do is I pretty much remain a thorn in said side. I crack jokes on him, and he cracked jokes back. Nah, for real. But I'm a writer by trade. I've worked at Vibe magazine. I've worked at Double XL magazine, Hook.com, GlobalGrind.com. Um, I've done radio. I used to be on the same. What was the station that the Awesome Two was on?
W. I used to listen. I used to listen to Austin too. WSBI. No, W. I can't remember. But yeah.
Yeah, but those in the New York City area in the tri-state will remember that station. WNWK, that was it was.
Yeah.
WNWK. Uh, I had a show called Nocturnal Transmissions. It was myself, Daytwan Thomas,
Yeah.
DJ Rude, and DJ Freedom Child out of Queens. We used to come on at like 2, 3 in the morning, right after Beat Miners Radio. So that was a lot of fun. They used to kind of help us out with things because we was super green, didn't know exactly what we was doing. Um, we showed up, didn't have any mats for the turntables, and I think it was Evil D had lent us his and whatnot. So it was a lot of fun. We paid to be on the air. Usually you get paid to be on the air. We paid every week to be on the air to spin records. So that was a super huge experience. So I used to intern for Kevin Keith and the Dirty Dozen.
Yeah.
They had a show on that station as well. But after years went by, we still would have been doing it, but they sold the station and switched to all Spanish format. And I'm not bilingual, so we were out of luck.
They probably did that just to get rid of you.
Probably so. They didn't really like us too much up there. We was the bad kids that was up there giving them problems, asking for extra copies of the show and stuff like that. So after all of that, I worked at BT for the most of my career in doing this. It was BT Online. And I did a little stuff with the network too, where we would have to cross over and, they would help us out. We'd help them out online. And I went from there to 4MM Games. I broke into the video game industry, where we put out the Def Jam Rap Star game. I don't know, it was kind of like a karaoke type of thing. had a lot of promise, but we happened to drop around the same time as 2K, NBA 2K. So we got we got smashed
No. Yeah.
when that came out. After then, I hooked up with Russell Simmons and his crew, and we did Global Grind. And after that, I went to Complex, where I was back into the video game arena. Um, I was doing reviews and setting up content around video games.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a long journey.
A long journey.
Yeah, man.
You're like 72, right? No. Before we really start, I just wanted to give props to my man, rest his soul, Kango. And I say
Yeah.
that because he actually gave me this hat.
Wow.
And I've never worn it. And as people know, I have wild hair, and my hair was kind of fuzzy. So I'm like, you know what? Let me kind of hide it. I didn't want to wear a baseball cap, and I usually wear bucket hats. But then I saw this. I was like, wait a minute, I've never worn this hat.
Wow.
Never. So I said, let me put it on, and, in deference to him, and just because it looked better than any other hat I put on anyway. So the props
Yeah,
to
rest in
Kango,
peace to Kango.
you know. And speaking of look, speaking of Evil D, he was on here like about 4 or 5 months ago. So
Uh-huh.
we had an interesting conversation as well. And so I never know how to start because everyone that knows me knows that like once I know the people that I speak to particularly for this series, since we know each other, like it's like how when you do interviews, you usually have a set of questions,
Hmm.
whatever, and you want to be more professional or you want to stick to the script.
Yeah.
That never happens.
Yeah, it never happens. Never happen ever.
But I do have some notes and questions. But you're from New York,
Yep, Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn specifically. That's why
Yep.
we never got along. But so I want to ask this question because it's going to end up coming up anyway. Because like I said, I never have an order. I just have like either bullet points or whatever. Because like I
Yeah,
said, however the conversation goes, it goes.
let
But
them rip.
as far as hip hop, since one thing I give Brooklyn is the depth of MCs that have come out of Brooklyn. They probably have more MCs than crime itself because Brooklyn's known for crime. But when and how did your love of hip hop start?
My level of hip hop started when I heard what was it?
You gotta age yourself, but go ahead.
Nuclear. I know, right? I'm really about to age myself. Jam on it
Yeah,
by Nucleus. I'm sure a lot of your younger viewers have no clue what that is, but it was that, and it was oh man, I can't remember the name of it. Something DMX, cause you are the best.
David D. You cut so fresh.
Yeah,
David DMX.
yes,
Yeah, I forgot the name of the record.
that joint.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that got me listening to rap and getting into the culture of hip hop, watching the breakers outside,
yeah.
and we tried to break, and my mom always get on me about it. She'd be like, "Don't be out there doing that break dance and stuff. The cops gonna come and they gonna get you," you know.
Especially in Brooklyn.
What?
No, I'm just saying because especially like cops just needed a reason.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the same way in the Bronx. I don't want to make it seem as if it was just Brooklyn, but I'm just saying, as opposed to certain sections of the city where like you can do whatever you want and the cops won't do anything. But like I said, Brooklyn, the Bronx, I mean, actually all boroughs except maybe I would say Upper Manhattan, but I forgot that Harlem is Upper Manhattan, so that's not
yeah.
true. But that's the only reason I said that, not to make it seem as if like I'm um, saying that Brooklyn was that bad, even though they were. But that's what I meant when I said it. But I didn't mean to interrupt. But go ahead.
What's crazy is that you think about how much hip hop was villainized back in those days. You know,
For good reason sometimes, but go ahead.
yeah, for good reasons sometimes. But like you had kids that were just out dancing, get harassed by cops. Um, The graffiti thing, that's kind of a gray line, you know what I mean? To be honest. But still, like getting beat up and stuff like that because you got some spray cans in your bag or whatever. Um, that was crazy. Like people don't really realize the the um the journey
Yeah.
that hip hoppers had to go through in order to make it to the Olympics, to make it into art galleries, to become university lessons and stuff like that. Like it was a wild time, man. Like, and I started out really young. I was like a little kid trying to break dance, pulling out cardboard outside and, looking like a fool, but it was fun.
But the good thing is that like hip hop has definitely raised us, and not only raised us, but gave us opportunities that, unless we chose another field, we were able to actually make money and make a
Yeah.
career out of something that was considered a fad at one time.
Yeah.
And I tell people that it's just amazing where even though the culture's been ripped by outsiders, so to speak, and they're making the real money, but still, billionaires have been made from hip hop, as well as people who have actually like started businesses. I mean, look at 50 Cent, look at Ice Cube, Queen Latifah,
Hmm.
like all of these people who are in fields that if hip hop wasn't there, would they realistically be involved? Because one, you don't know if that's where they were going, because I don't and like I said, I can't speak for them, but I don't think Ice Cube or Latifah was thinking about becoming Hollywood executives back then. But being involved in hip hop, there was an avenue for them to go through where opportunities were presented. They grabbed it and they ran with it. And like I said, and that was all because of hip hop, you know.
Yeah.
And I could definitely appreciate it because, you know, growing up in the Bronx, literally like miles from where Africa Bambaataa and the Zulu Nation were, where hip hop um, was given credit to start, because there's so many different stories, so many different things that I tell people when that conversation comes up about where did hip hop start and things of that nature. I'm like, I can only speak about what I know, and growing up in the Bronx, that's all I knew because we were in that area. I was too young to go in those areas, but we used to hear about it, and like it was just, there were gangs back then, but not like Bloods, Crips, but like sectional gangs where even and I've been chastised in the past when I say that Zulu Nation, which started as a black spade, was actually a gang, and it's like I'm not supposed to say something like that, but you know what? It is what it is. I know
Yeah.
what I saw and what I witnessed, but coming up in that era and then realizing that somebody who was involved in something like that was able to break through and give us as kids something to look forward to, definitely like helped. And I'm appreciative of what like the pioneers did back then, especially that I went to school. When I went to high school, I went to high school with people like MC Search from Third Base, Slick Rick, Dana Dane, like going to school with these type of people at a time where money wasn't being made where that is being made today. It was like
Yeah.
um that avenue that wasn't there, they helped make it to what it is today, where it's just amazing that we're still there. But I didn't mean to get off track. But like I said, with these conversations, it's gonna go where it goes. But
Yeah. Exactly.
and the reason why I asked about hip hop, because we actually, I think we actually met at Vibe.
I
Well,
think so.
I think you worked at Vibe, but I wasn't there. Wait, was it, or was it Hooked?
Nah,
No,
it
no,
was it was definitely before Hook.
yeah, before Hook, yeah. So but even using that, well, we actually started working together with Hook. So yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was because I was working with Ice Media. Oh yeah, actually because I was working, yeah, you was working at Vibe. I used to come by there. Then I started working at Blaze
Ah, okay.
because I was a receptionist at Blaze
Uh-huh.
um, at one time, and then Reggie Miller, Ice Media, or as I say, I said Media, you know,
You would.
you know, he rescued me and brought me on and to work with Hook.com, and that's when we became like more of a family, because we all were under the Vibe tree in some way.
Hmm.
And like I said, most of the people what who showed up at Dayton's party a couple of weeks ago. Happy 72nd to Dayton Thomas,
72nd.
who I despise greatly. But and it's funny because like even going through that particular journey to where we all branched out to different things, you end up BET, I worked at Impact, Black Enterprise, the
Mm-hmm.
sports and things of that nature, all because of like whatever beginnings, and it all had to do with hip hop. My whole thing was I've always wanted to be involved with computers because at the time computers was just coming up, and there was really no career with computers, but computers were the thing. And of course, this is way before online because, like I said, hook.net, well, hook.com, because our email address was hook.net, but
Yeah.
hook.com was one of the first hip hop portals. Like, because it wasn't websites back then, it was portals. And
Yeah.
UBO was there. Like, it was just so many different things where, and when we started doing it, it was just amazing because nobody anticipated, like, we were definitely the precursors of what's going on today, where
Mm-hmm.
everything is online.
Yeah.
Everything back then was, magazines, newspapers, and things of that nature. Now it's like everything's online, blogs, and we predated blogs because it is what it is. But
Yeah.
I want to get specifically to you as far as like not only your interest in hip hop, how were you able to utilize your interest and love for hip hop to actually become involved in making it a career? Like, how did you first get involved in hip hop as a career as opposed to a fan?
Mm. Uh. Well, I used to write rhymes in school when I
Uh,
was in grade school. Don't ask me to spit nothing.
I will definitely not.
Because then I'll be dating both of us. Um,
I think we're
yeah.
past that stage about the dating, but go ahead. Everyone knows that we're old, so we're there already. So
And my guidance counselor, she told me that I used to show her my rhymes and stuff, and she was like, "You memorize all of this stuff? You just do it like that?" I'm like, "Yeah." She was like, "Well, you ever think about becoming a writer?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't exciting to me at that time.
yeah,
Um, but later on, I went to school at the Institute of Audio Research that isn't around anymore, but they teach you how to work recording studio equipment and to be an engineer. So I had went to school for that, and I was talking to one of my fellow students, and he was telling me about doing an internship, and I had never really thought about it. So he was like, "Yeah, you do an internship at a studio, or why don't you try at a magazine or whatever?" So I got an internship at Vibe. That's how I started at Vibe. Um, I was working in the mailroom. I did reception, just like you said.
you
And
you really started from the bottom.
yup. And I don't know if you remember, but Loud Records used to be right above
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
So it was interesting seeing the characters that came through the Loud, because the doors would open up. You see a big cloud of smoke and like businessmen in there looking all uncomfortable and whatnot. But anyhow, I had did a piece on UTFO, and I submitted it to where I met Kango for the second time. The first time I met him when I was in grade school. Um, and I didn't have a pen for him to sign my Roxanne Roxanne single. um, but yeah, I did a piece on him. The editor, Emil Wilbekin at the time, he loved it. So he was like, "Yo, you should think about doing some more for us." And I didn't know I was gonna get a check for it, and I got a check, and I was like, "What? I could do this? I could write cool stuff and get paid to do it?" So then I started, developing my skills as a writer, and started building on different, on building on the foundation. And the other editors, which I'm so happy for. Other editors there would help me out, would help me develop my voice, develop my writing style, develop like grammar and all of the other cool stuff. And you just don't see a lot of that anymore. Like a lot of these bloggers and stuff like that, they're not reaching back to help other. Like Kevin Powell was one of the people that used to help me out. Um, Rob Kenner, um, all those editors, Danielle Smith, Sheena Lester, all those people that were doing their thing and they had the not the ability, but they had the right to act all hoity-toity, but they didn't. They reached down to us interns and they helped us out where we showed that we were serious. Because I had spoke to Mimi Valdez because she was looking to pass off her column Notes from the Underground, which was about up and coming artists and whatnot. She was looking to pass that off because her plate was getting too full. So one of the things she asked me was, "Why do you want to write? Is it just to see your name in the magazine, or what are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I think I got a voice and I wanted to be heard."
Yeah.
And after that, she was like, "You know what? All right, I'm gonna give you a shot." So then I did a couple of columns. They started doing really, really well. People was reading it. I found Talib Kweli. He was speaking at Medgar Evers College one time, and he just spit a couple of lines. And I approached him afterwards, and I was like, "Yo, you dope? You got a demo or something? Or I'm from Vibe Magazine, blah blah blah." And he gave me his demo, and I put him in the article. And next thing I know, he was getting signed. Uh,
All because of you.
yeah. Well, I can't take all the credit. I wish I could take all the credit, but it's good to know that I helped out in that process to show that he was being recognized by a huge publication like Vibe Magazine at the time. I shined light on 3 6 Mafia. Um, who else? I can't remember who else. It's been so long, but
Yeah, you're old. It's okay.
yeah, my memory's going. Almost as old as you said.
If it wasn't for the fact that my name was on the screen, I'd probably forget my damn name. No, but it's good because as you stated, you did name some great people, Mimi, Emil, I mean all of them, and as you stated, if you think about the levels of like writers and journalists from back then and how the torch was passed down to like you, Daytwan, Jermaine Hall, and all of that, and it's like even though people, I mean, but at the same time, it's gotten so big and convoluted where the concentration that it was before, where people were able to mentor and pass on knowledge, like I have noticed that it kind of stopped.
Yeah.
Even with me as a writer, like I always tell people that I'm not a writer. I've never claimed to be a writer. I actually started a website with I've never taken a journalism class, never had an interest in writing. And I have to give credit to Carew Daniels.
Oh yeah, Carew.
Carew suggested that I write for a magazine called One Nut. Barry
I
Ray.
remember that.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was writing at One Nut before I found this out years later that Elliot Wilson worked at One Nut.
Oh, get
Chris
out.
X worked at One Nut.
Who?
Chris X.
Oh, okay.
So it's funny that Carew introduced me to the editor because the editor wanted hip hop, but didn't know anybody or any writers within hip hop. Now Carew was like, "You need to write because I think you can write," and I'm like, "How can you think I can write when I've never written anything like an editorial or anything or any journalistic piece, whatever." But he knew that I knew everyone. Everyone knew me because, like I said,
Mm,
I went to school with Slick Rick and like all these other people that coming up, like working with Video Music Box, Tuffy, Ralph McDaniels, and meeting all these rappers as they're coming up. So, and I was also doing parties. So I knew everyone. So the first article, and I don't mean to take this off you, but the
No,
only
no,
reason
no.
why I brought this to this because, like I said, I noticed, like you said, the people that you mentioned, they're still doing their thing, whereas like you have other people that came before them that you may not hear much about. But
Right.
again, that's because they're probably I can't say. I want to say they're probably dead or
Oh, hey,
so if
history
we
works
old, that
like
means
that,
they old.
right?
Excuse me, I shouldn't say that. But long story short, my first article was a young rapper from Brooklyn named Biggie Smalls.
Oh,
He was the first person I interviewed, and I haven't left since. And like I said, but and even with me, like I didn't have any guidance. And when I started the industry cosign, which celebrated 21 years this year,
all right,
like
congrats.
we had a site called a crusade.net before that.
I remember that. Yep.
So like we just did that, and like as an entrepreneur just starting it, and then from there, like luckily for me, like other magazines was like, hey, I mean, back then, it wasn't views, it was hits. Like
Yeah.
they used to get they used to get maybe like 50,000 hits, like a month. When I came on board, it shot up to like 2-3 million, and that's no exaggeration.
Wow.
So it's like, and then from there it was like, a career was created for me because I was a singer, I was a producer, I was into music. So like I said, I still don't consider myself a journalist, even though I've been writing ever since. But and the reason why I say all of that is, like, I guess because blogs, like nowadays you can actually get a free blog and start reporting and consider yourself a journalist. How do you feel? Like, I do credit people who have taken the ball and ran with it and have been successful, but I think that people who call themselves journalists slash bloggers or content creators or influencers, whatever they call them nowadays. Like I said, this is no disrespect because there's a lot of people who are doing a thing, and I could definitely give them props. But how do you feel that since people can do that easily, like the journalistic values? Actually, now what? Let me shape the question differently. Since I thought about this, journalism back then compared to journalism now, specifically in hip hop and black media.
Mm.
Why do you think that there were standards back then, and it's basically like Wild Wild West now? What are your thoughts on that? As far as like a person being able to get a site and putting anything online, getting 10 million views, and then giving wrong information, and like I said, there's so many different things we can get into. But how do you feel about the fact that we like journalistic integrity? Specifically because, of course, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, they still have their journalistic integrity. But it seems as if in black media, like the bigger sites don't really have journalistic integrity. It's just about the views. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think it's kind of the same thing that happened with print media. When money got involved, the fast cash got involved. That's when it started to take a turn. Um, the journalistic integrity. Oh man, that's a bee in my bonnet. Oh wow, that really sounded old, didn't it? That bee in my bonnet. um, because no one wants to think long term. One of the things that Sheena always told me was when you write a story, even if someone else has written this about the same topic, write it to make it as difficult as possible for someone to follow it up. Have as much information in it to where they either have to use you as a source, or you know they just gonna have to struggle to bring something new to it. And I don't think that's what people are doing anymore. They're just putting out stuff, not fact checking it, not getting quotes, not getting, and it's sad because in the end, the reader loses out.
Yeah.
because when you want to read something, even if it's in a book, you don't want to read a book that's just going to give you junk food for the entire book. You get tired of it quick. You toss it. The books that stand the test of time are the ones that you constantly get stuff from. You're always learning something new. You got to read it, like the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Like, you gain something from reading that 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah.
You know, um, you look at artists like Rakim, who you could listen to one of his old albums and you still find something that you didn't find before. You know, um, I think that's what's missing in a lot of black media. No one's thinking about the reader. They're just thinking about ad sales. They're thinking about, um, kind of like that big boom of traffic to come in to kind of legitimize them. But when it comes down to it, nobody cares. It doesn't legitimize you any. It just you just a placeholder for the next one to
Yeah.
pop up, for the newest to pop up.
That brings this question to mind because when I worked at Interactive One, which is now what is it now? Urban One, which is now Urban
Ah,
One.
okay.
'Cause I was the editor at Black Planet. Um,
What? I didn't know that said.
yeah, I used to run Black Planet back
Black
then.
Planet was the joint.
Yeah, but not in its heydays. But when it was still around. But there was always an issue with salacious content as opposed to like content that'll feed your soul, so to speak. So we would always go back and forth. I would go back and forth with like the person running the department, and it's like there's always the question of does the audience control the narrative of the platform, or does the platform give the readers what's necessary, or does it drive it? And the reason why I'm asking the question in that way is because I've always felt that specifically with, I'm going to say, corporate media, which
Okay.
is right. In corporate media, even when you have choices, they still have it where we're going to, you have these options, or we're going to give you this. It's your choice whether you read it or not. But it seems as if in the black space that we're driven not by what we can give the people. Because when I was at Black Planet, I used to say to them, like, there are people out there that want to get the good news, but if we're always
Right.
giving them bad news, they're going to get it elsewhere. But because we're throwing the bad news out there, like, we basically trained the audience to accept it and want more of it.
Yeah.
So it's like that was gonna be my question. Like, what do you think? Is it the media's responsibility to put out the content that specifically for black media where it's not always salacious, or should we be driven by traffic numbers? Now, of course, from a business aspect, you need to pay people, you need to make money,
Right.
and I get it. But when we were at Black Planet, like the interactive under the interactive umbrella, we have verticals. You had the women's channel, you had the entertainment channel. So it's like I always felt like we could still get the content that is necessary, but it always came up where we had to still blend it. We had a
Right.
religious channel and a religious slash wellness channel where you had to throw a couple of things in there to try to get traffic on there. And but my whole theory was always, you put it out there, people will find it. But I guess when you become corporate, when it comes to numbers and when it comes to um, making money, whatever makes money is going to make it. But I don't see it that way with corporate media,
Right. You
and and
you absolutely right.
and I don't understand why there has to be a distinction where and we still get paid less as black media,
Yep.
and we're bringing numbers in, but still being paid. Like, I I'm not even gonna go about pay when it comes to black media, but because I'm still experiencing it, but like what are your thoughts as far as like whether specifically with black media, should the platform make its way in trying to educate the audience or get the audience more good than bad, or should the platforms be directed based on the numbers because we've given them the bad news or the salacious news that they crave?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I think one good example is Vibe. When Vibe came out, it had the polish, it had the finesse of a, I don't want to say, but a higher tier. It raised the bar for writing because you had like professionally done photographs, you had like writers that was really putting it down, and it changed the taste that the readers had
Yeah,
to where they can digest a 5,000 word piece. You know, you had other options out there. I mean, the source was still good, not taking anything from them, but Vibe had a whole other vibe to it. Wow, look at that! Had a whole other rhythm to it that you know that made it distinct, and it kept that identity for a good amount of time.
yeah,
You know, so then I mean, look at your so on the flip side of that, look at your say like your Don Divas and all the criminal
yeah,
type magazines that came out years later. They're not still around, but they made a big splash when they came out. So people was, readers was like, yeah, yeah, we want this until they just didn't want it. Uh, you can kind of look at BET. That was like the place to go if you wanted to see black people, if you wanted to see black people doing dope stuff. Until it started to, some people's cravings started to differ,
yeah,
and they wanted to see Nelly swipe a credit card in a butt crack. They wanted to see that type of stuff, and it started making so much money that BET started showing more of that. And in turn, rap videos started becoming more of that. And it started to become black media and black entertainment's whole identity. There was nothing to balance it out. There was nothing, there's no black 60 minutes. Although it could be done,
yeah,
but no one's willing to give us the grace to say, okay, we believe in this. We think that this will build a lifelong audience. That people, when they get older, they're still gonna watch it. They're still gonna read it because, we're the grown-ups.
yeah.
You know, we're a part of the culture even as it grows and starts to gain new interests. You know, a lot of black media just doesn't do that. They're not equipped to push forward and grow with their audience. They're just for the time being. And you see like, a lot of these websites that's out here, yeah, they get crazy clicks. They get, tons of traffic, but it doesn't last. It never lasts. There's always another one that pops up and everybody's doing that. Remember when what was that site? Media Takeout was the
Yes,
joint. Everybody wanted to. They ran the Media Takeout to see what they had popping. Now we got the Shade Room.
yeah,
Nobody's really talking about Media Takeout no more, and we keep just
yeah,
swapping places with whoever's new. But I mean, the content isn't gonna sustain them years from now. They're just gonna fall off when somebody new pops up. I mean,
but
that's what I feel about it.
do you think because of the platform, um, relying on that type of content is the reason why the audience keeps craving it?
Partly,
Because
yeah.
I'm going to say, yeah, because, we can definitely, because like I said, if it's not there and if you solve the problem, if they can't find it, then they're going to find something else, which makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
But as World Star Hip Hop, you know,
Right. Yeah.
it,
Perfect example.
it got to a point where anytime there's a fight, it's World Star.
Yeah.
You know, it made it into the corporate media where even in some videos or on some shows, you would hear people be like World Star.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because it was a good thing. And I always say to people that we can have a balance, but the problem is, in my opinion, that with the balance, like the louder ones are the ones that kind of controls what we think. I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna use a good example with when it comes to even some of the YouTube programs and some of these shows where it's like gang culture is still a thing, and it's as if like I use like Vlad TV as an example, even though that's not black media, but I'm using Vlad TV as an, or even Adam 22. Whereas
Hmm.
what they started with hip hop. Once they found that they can get more views on gang culture or with street wars and things of that nature, they've kind of made more money, built it up where now people want to be more recognized for those activities than for hip hop or music
Yep.
or anything else. Whereas now that's the main focus. Now,
Yep.
there's nothing wrong with that if that's your thing. I'm just saying, but like our audience and the people coming up after us, the kids, if the only thing they're seeing that's representing black people or people of color is that, they're going to gravitate towards that.
Hmm.
You coming up, we had options. Even before Obama came around, we knew that there was, we can do corporate work, we can doctors, lawyers, things of that nature. But the generation after us is all about sports and sports and hip hop.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that, but it's like there's still other options, but they feel like that those are the only options. Even from Ice Cube saying that all we have, or most rappers back then saying all we have is sports, music, and entertainment.
Yep.
So now that we've been corrupted, when I say we, I mean as a culture, we've been corrupted to think that because there's good hip hop, there's positive hip hop, but we want to focus on the ignorance of hip hop or the people that's ignorant. You have, and no disrespect to her because she's a legend. But when Lil Kim came home from jail, she got a TV show, she got a reality show.
And
You
I
know,
forgot about that.
that's what I'm saying. So you got certain people when they do whatever dirt that they've done, they're celebrated. Chris Rock said it best. Somebody leaves the hood, goes to college, and he comes back. Hey, I'm home. It's like, oh, you think you're better than us because you got a degree? But the person that's been in jail for killing or selling drugs has bodies on them. They come home, they throw a party.
Hmm.
So it's like, and like I said, I kind of get it, but it's like, I mean, I wish that we had, and the thing is, we do have ways to change that mindset, but when we try, I mean, come on, I still freelance for Black Enterprise. Black Enterprise has been around for more than 50 years, the epitome of Black entrepreneurship. But yet, people would rather read a magazine that has the drug dealers that made it. And the thing is, there's never a successful, well, I shouldn't say there's never a successful, but it's rare that there's successful stories when they come. I mean, look at Larry Hoover. He just got
Right.
pardoned, but he still has another 200 years of state time to stay in prison. But then he celebrated, and he started the Gangster Disciples, where even today, what he started, the organization he started and was involved with, still has an impact on not only Black families, but Chicago in general.
Right.
But yet he celebrated, and no disrespect to Mason Cam, but I heard them talk about Trump did good things because they just pardoned Larry Hoover or he pardoned Kodak Black. And I'm like, wow, you actually have innocent Black men in jail who didn't harm anybody. That those are the people we should be fighting for or champion for, and yet you're giving Trump credit for pardoning somebody who was responsible for many deaths and the destruction of neighborhoods.
Yep.
And it's like, I respect what Cam and Mace have done. I enjoy watching this show, but the kids that are watching their show are looking up to them, wanting to be and follow what they're doing. So if they're praising somebody like Trump, because not because Trump has helped Medicaid or whatever else, but because he pardoned a convicted drug dealer, killer, whatever you want to call him. And like I said, I don't want to be disrespectful towards another black person, but at the same time, there are actual innocent men, women that have been railroaded, and if we put that energy into those type of people, like we can do better for ourselves than anybody can. And like I said, I know I went off on something else, but it's like
Oh no, that's real.
it saddens me because, like I said, we're still trying. Like I said, there's still publications out there that still are doing good work, and yet, like like I said, as opposed to like as a brand, because I've worked at Vibe, I worked at Blaze, I've worked at Impact, I've worked at um, the Source, but I always tell people that Black Enterprise is my proudest achievement because of what Earl Graves set out to do in educating us as people to
Mm.
get our business together, to do things that can set us on the right path for entrepreneurship and things of that nature. You know, and I may have made more money with other brands, but I still hold myself in high esteem because I'm still trying to do the work that he set forth because it was to uplift our people as opposed to just making money to put money in the pockets of the owners of the company. But like I said, I went off on a different tangent. But um,
I kind of want to go back to when you was talking about like Adam 22
yeah,
and Vlad
yeah,
and them. I was going down a YouTube rabbit hole one night and I started noticing, you know how the algorithms start suggesting more of the same types of videos that you've been watching. And I decided I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a bite. I'm gonna see what these other videos are doing. And you have these non-black people, mostly men, like doing news, like they're reporting it like news. And you can tell sometimes when they throw little jabs at us.
yeah,
Like one guy said, he was talking about what's that kid, Spot him got him, I think, like that. He's from Florida. He got into his crew got into it with another crew or whatever, and he made it a point to mention saying that one of the guys bared his teeth. Now, the thing about baring teeth is that that's something that chimps do when they become aggressive.
yeah.
Yep. They don't smile. People tend to think that chimps are smiling when they do that. No, they about to whoop you. They about to get you, you know? And he put it in that context to like kind of throw a jab. And that wasn't the only jab. And it's like so many of these guys are doing these videos, and it's entertainment for them. It's
Yeah.
our deaths, our deaths, our dysfunctions, and everything is just entertainment for these guys,
And
and they're making money.
and the profit margin as well.
Yeah, they're
Because
making money.
I do follow like Adam 22 and all of them. Because at times it's entertaining, but mostly stupid. But he was just in New York with gang members in Brooklyn, or was it the
Yeah,
Bronx?
like why?
And I'm like, and this is the thing, even with Vlad TV, we, and when I say we, I mean they are so stupid that we go on these shows knowing what type of show that we're going on, knowing that especially if we've done crimes, especially if we're doing crimes,
Yeah.
and we expose ourselves,
Yep.
and we continue to do it. People have been calling Vlad TV feds for years. This is nothing new. This is not like it just started this year. Go back 5 years and you have those accusations. But he's still in business. He's still making money. And how many white crime lords or how many white people involved in crimes are being featured on Adam 22, Vlad TV, and all these other white creators content channels? I have yet to see one white person featured or reported on when it comes to things of that nature. But if you want,
He does Mob Guys. He did Mob Guys for a minute.
oh, you know what, you're right. You're right. I take that back. You're right. Um, I think I'm speaking specifically Adam 22 because I was actually watching it earlier. so, so I was actually no, but you're right. But the thing is, the bulk. If he does 100
Oh
interviews,
yeah.
98 are with 79 are with street members, gang culture. 12 might be actual rappers who may have gotten their start in gangs, and then the three white guys that just happened to be there because he didn't have content or whatever.
Yep.
And it's our fault. And when I say our fault, I mean their fault as far as the black people that do it. Like, I mean, and specifically where like people are getting RICO charges, people are getting like and the type of questions. Now the thing is, if things come up in conversation, that's different. But they're asking specific questions about crimes or suspected crimes, and they're up there like, well, but you got to understand it from my point of view. When I was doing it, I'm looking at, and the thing is, for me, I never looked at either programs, but now I look in amazement because when people be like, they be telling themselves, I'm like, niggas can't be that stupid. I'm like, nah. When I start looking at it, and I'm like, yo, I'm like, they are. And then, and what's sad is that some of these people are clamoring to get up there.
Yeah.
Now, the little bit of money that some of them may be getting paid, they can't even use that to post bail. They can't use that to pay their lawyer. So it's like you're going exposing yourself. The feds are always watching these type of programs.
Yep.
You know that. You hear the stories. And the thing is, people, and like I said, it's more, they should build themselves more as street culture as opposed to hip hop or
Thank
even
you.
black culture. And that's the sad thing where street culture is being clouded as black culture.
Yep.
And you and I can have our platforms and bring the positive or bring people that's actually part of the culture, but no one's going to care because if we're not bringing on now if we bring on former gang members that wants to give a message, that's different. But if you bring on current gang members or suspected crime people who are suspected in crimes and things of that nature, as an example, like I said, since I've been watching Adam 22, this guy Loose Cannon, who's gotten on camera to admit to most of the crimes that he's being accused of, as if that's like something to get off his chest. And I'm like, there's nobody in his family or none of his friends are saying, "Yo, shut the fuck up!" Like,
Right. You would think.
Around that, like, are we so caught up in ignorance where, like, in the comments or when people have these reaction videos, they're talking about it. And some of these people love that people are talking about them. So they're watching the videos too. And I'm like, because of people like that, people are looking at me as a content creator. Like, like those that's the type of content I gotta get in order to get views. I'm like, nah, if I get 4 views and I'm good with this because this is what I want to do, I'm good with it because I'm not going to bring some ignorant fool. Like I said, the conversation happens, and the thing is, I've spoken, because you know the people that I know,
Right.
there are people that have done things or have been involved with things, and they're like, "Hey, let's have a conversation." Well, I can't talk. I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. Actually, I'll use Albie Sure as an example. Good friends with Albie Sure. Um, I'm like, "Yo, let's talk." I said, "I want to talk about your near-death experience, what you're doing when it comes to health and things of that nature." Now, this is before the Diddy trial and things came about. So he's like, "Well, I can't really talk about." I'm like, "I don't want to talk about that. I don't care about that." I'm like, "We're actual friends. We've hung out. What you're going through and what you're trying to, that's on you." I told you specifically what I want to talk about. I want to talk about your successes, your career as an R&B artist, your things. And even when maybe about 2 years ago, like I was actually getting in touch with Puff, excuse me, Diddy, about like because we were interns together. My whole thing was as far as his rise, you know, well, not his, you know what I mean, like in the industry. Whereas I want to speak to him about that and to show people, but it's like then of course the Cassie thing came up, and I'm like, oh, I can't even touch it even if I wanted to, because if people hear that I'm having Diddy as a guest, they're not looking for what I'm looking to present.
Right.
They're looking for, well, did you do it? Did you do it? So I get it when it comes to certain aspects. And there's some people that I know that I don't even want to approach, because it's like if they got some type of scandal, like they're so used to people wanting to morph into what negativity that they've been involved with, that they're kind of guarded
Yeah.
with that. But it's like I haven't, and the thing is there are some people I know that would talk to me, and I'm like, but I don't want to ask, because in the back of their mind, they might be like, well, this is that and the other. And it's like, but if you know me, like for all these years that you've known me, I've been writing for over 20 years. I don't even like writing gossip. You look at my content on any site that I've been on, The Source, Black Enterprise, Billboard, like these places that I've written for. Now, I might report news when it comes to several things, but that's not what I write about. My thing has always been, executives and people doing things. And I want to continue that specifically with this platform. My friends are better than yours, because, you know, even though people use the term friends loosely, it still interlocks with my relationship with you. If we're not friends, we could be associates, or we have a relationship where the expectation is going to be like what it is, the positive aspects.
Yeah.
I've had Chiali on here, and I didn't talk about his prison or what he done. We talked about from his getting out of prison and what he's done after that, things of that nature. So it's like I, I understand. Or my do not disturb went off. Let me put it back on. But but simply, I feel that when we as media people have a platform that can not necessarily uplift people, but not give them the ignorance, people tend to ignore it. And I think that that's our fault as I don't want to say as Black culture, but you know, I'm guilty. I just admitted that I watched Adam 22 for the ignorance. Because that's not that, and that's not the only thing I watch. But I'm just saying that I do, because when I hear things, and I'm like, I gotta see it for myself. I
Right.
gotta be that. I gotta be that curious person that's like, they can't be that stupid. And then I get
Mhm.
caught up, because I'm like, they are that stupid. So
I
that's
feel you. I mean, I think it makes you human,
yeah,
because
definitely.
humans, they're gonna be attracted to stuff like that. I'm sure back in the old Bible days, stonings was an event. You know what I'm saying?
You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But it's just amazing where I just have a bad taste in my mouth when it comes to, even when I've done even when I interviewed R. Kelly, of course pre jail time. When I interviewed um R. Kelly back then, I'm like, I want to talk to him about his career, and the publicist is like, oh, you can't talk about that. I'm like, I don't want to. I'm like,
Right.
I want because he's talented. You know, criminal but talented,
Right.
But I don't know. Like I said, I kind of take offense when especially that I've always done what I wanted to do. When people either try to give me a script or tell me I can't, if I can't ask these questions, I don't want. I'm not going to ask those questions. But if you're trying to tell me that I'm restricted in what I want to ask, no, then and I understand you have a job to do. You have to protect your client. I get
Right.
that. And that's one of the reasons why I stay away from certain things because I don't want them to slip up when I'm talking to them. And I'm just being a journalist, whatever you want to call me, and just recording what they're saying. And it's like, hey, it came out their mouths. It's not as like I don't ask questions like that. So it's like I just blame black media for us continuing because we can't blame white media. Now white media does it, but the bulk of it comes from black media.
Yep.
Adam 22 is not black media. Vlad TV is not black media. All of these platforms that focus on that type of content, they're not black media. So we can't blame black media. But if we're doing the same things or um, following them because you see that they're making money and they're getting views, then we're at fault. Now I have seen some channels of either former gang members or people that's involved with street culture. I can't be mad at them because that's them. That's what they're doing. They have intimate knowledge of some of the things that they speak about.
Right.
I can respect that on that level because it's like they're looking at it like this is what really happens, or this is that another. They're not glorifying it. They're just speaking about it because they're involved or they have been involved. I can respect it because, like I said, they're still speaking from a point of view that I can never speak from, and I will never speak from because I've never been in the streets like that. I've never been in jail. Some of these guys that have done it and are doing it, their point of view makes sense, and I gain knowledge from them because they're giving it from a point of view of actually being involved. And like,
Right.
and I'm not talking about the ones that's glorifying. I'm talking about the one that's like, today this person, and the reason why Big U is going through this because when this is that and other, this is that and the other, and I'm like, oh, I have people I know that have been involved in street life, but I'm not going to go ask them like, so when this happens, what goes? I'm not. I'm not. First off, I don't want to know from an
Right.
intimate, from an intimate setting. And but if I'm looking at um a platform that does that, and I can get the point of view, because like I said, if I'm looking at these programs and I see that these people are actually stupid, but then I have somebody who's involved in lifestyle can give a point of view of why that's not stupid to them, then I could get a better understanding. I'm still going to think it's stupid, but I could get a better understanding of their thought process because
Right.
I'm not processing why, if you know you've committed crimes for the past 15 years and you get up on a program and you talk about things that doesn't have a statute of limitation, an open case, something you did last week. So it's like, but then listen to them. Like I said, it's still stupid. But then it's like, okay, it,
You have an understanding of their
yeah, yeah,
perspective. Yeah.
exactly. So, like I said, it's like it's just interesting. Just man, yeah, like yeah, uh,
I think that's the other thing. Like when you talk about the audience and readers and stuff like that, we seem to have a tough time acknowledging and accepting a perspective different from our own. We like to slap a label on it. Oh, that's Hotep. Oh, that's whatever this, that's that. Instead of like, you don't have to agree with it,
yeah,
but you can take what somebody's perspective is and have an understanding of where that thought process comes from. And you can kind of trace to see where it leads to as well.
yeah.
You know,
It,
I
it,
think that's pretty deep.
it's funny you say that because um, one person I want to talk to so bad, and I know that if I don't know if Lord Jamar,
Okay. I'm
Lord
sure he'll
Jamar,
talk to you.
no, that's what I'm saying. But the thing is, I've known him for over 20 years. Hung out, we came up with the same thing. I just want to get some of the thought process of some of his thoughts because, of course, we're not on the same page on a lot of things. But
Right.
my thing is, like you said, I want to get a better understanding of his thought process from his own mouth as opposed to what I hear. Because when he's having a conversation with certain people and he's defending himself, it's going to come out in a way where he's either going to be defensive or he has to defend himself in a way where I'm not going to understand his mindset because he's defending himself. But
Right.
like I would have a conversation with him with no cameras on just to get an understanding because of the Lord Jamar that we've been exposed to recently as opposed to the Lord Jamar on record or on stage.
Right.
And the funny thing is actually I'm supposed to speak to Sadat X next week, coincidentally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he
Um,
works in the medical field
yeah,
now, right?
exactly. Yeah, he does. And he just had a health situation. Now I'm going to, like I said, unless it comes up in conversation, I know people have been asking him about Lord Jamar and his thought process. And it's like, but me and X, like I was, in fact, X is the coolest one in Brand Newbie that I was coolest with. So he knows I'm not coming from that angle. So I'm not worried about from that aspect. It might come up, and it would be great to hear his perspective because he's made comments publicly, specifically after the Vice President Harris with
Uh,
Jamar calling her, a bitch, and like him separating himself because of those comments. And then people I know were like hitting him on social media about this and that. He's had to come out and make a statement because it's like his views weren't the same. But my thing has always been with people that we don't necessarily see the same thing, getting their point of view, but getting their point of view from an aspect where it's on a level where they can explain themselves without them being attacked.
yeah.
So that way, and like I said, speaking to somebody like me, and I think I have that advantage where if I do reach out to Lord Jamar, like I don't, like I said, I don't know his mindset on what he would think if I do, because I have reached out to him before as far as talking to him, but this was way before this. So my thing is, I would like to have, I like to use my platform to give people a chance without people thinking I'm throwing softball questions. No, nothing like that. I just want to ask somebody that knows this person. Now, if I didn't know him, completely different because I don't know him.
Hmm.
My intentions might not be on surface, but if I know Black Spot was just involved in a situation where people are vilifying him, but Black Spot knows that we had a good relationship where it's like, he's not going to feel threatened or feel like I'm going to attack him in that way, then I want to do that because even if 90% of the world is against them, like as a friend or as an associate or as somebody that knows, like my curiosity will get the best of me. And if we're cool enough where I feel that you might be misjudged, even if I think you're wrong, I want to be able to do that based on my friendship, but not with somebody feeling like they have to feel like they have to have a cloak around them. Like I said, when I
Right.
had that conversation with I'll be sure when he was talking about the Diddy, I was like, I don't care about the Diddy situation. I don't care about any of that. We have enough to talk about where Diddy would never be mentioned unless you bring him up.
Hmm.
Like I said, I just use that as an example only because we've had conversations recently, well, before the trial actually started, about coming on the platform, because me and him used to hang out. I came up in that time. So, like I said, one advantage I do have out of a lot of people who are doing, who they have these platforms where they might get more views, they might get more recognition, but for me, it's just about me having a conversation with somebody I know, which is the reason why my show is not titled something else. My friends are better than yours. Even if you don't think so, I have other friends that's going to be better than yours. So, but like I said, and like I said, I just want to throw that out there because, like I said, there are many people I know. It will be a great conversation.
Hmm.
Will they be ready for it? Will they let their guards down? I don't know. If we have a private conversation, I'm pretty sure anything goes because it's a private conversation. And I have that type of relationship with a lot of people where they can let their guards down because I've never given them reason. And if they do, they have their reasons. But I don't think I've ever given anybody a reason to let their guards down if you've known me long enough to know that, especially in the field of journalism, where if I'm going to talk to you, it's not going to be for clout or to get views. If that's the case, there's so many celebrities that I know that I can definitely talk to that I can get the views. That's not what it's about for me because I want to talk to people like you and let people that view these interviews, well, conversations that there are other people out there that you need to either recognize or that you should know, which is how that's my way of bringing it back around to you. I want to ask you about your transition to video and tech because I know that's one that is a field that would never die. That is always some type of movement, and I do notice that a lot of hip hop heads have, or they interchange. And like, what is it about video games and tech that drew you to it, as far as a profession?
Well, I've always been into video games. I've always been into tech. Like I had an Atari 2600. I
So
had
did I.
the system that had the little knob that you turn to play Pong and all of that. My first computer was a Commodore 64. You
Hmm.
know, yeah, I skipped over the VIC 20. Ah,
Yes,
but so I kind of always had an interest in it. So when I was at Vibe Online, I was brought on. I left that part out before. I was brought on to Vibe Online
I
to
had that on my
write
notes.
a column. Huh?
I said I had
Oh,
that in my notes, but go ahead.
oh, okay. So that's around the time when the internet started to pick up. We were still using dial up, which was crazy, and then we eventually uh, got up to a T1, and that's when we knew we were balling when we got that T1 connection. Um, I taught
T1.
myself HTML, and that helped me a whole lot. And doing that opened up the doors for everything else. So by that time, I kind of gave video games a bit of a break,
Yeah,
and then I got into it because got back into it because we started doing video game reviews with celebrities.
yeah.
We had a was it a 3DO? I think it was called, but yeah,
I'm,
it
I'm,
was
I'm,
a
I'm a
it
video
was a
game
pretty
like
decent. Oh, for real?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I stopped playing video games after Atari 2600. I'm gonna be honest.
Oh man, you missed some good times, bro.
I know. I just had no interest from all my friends. Everybody was going doing it. I'm like, eh. So,
Yeah, I used to spend time in the arcades, man, putting quarters in them boxes.
well, I used to go to the arcades, but
Okay.
I should have said more so home
Oh, all right.
when it comes to home because, like I said, Atari 2600, was a home machine, and like the Commodore 64, all those games, ColecoVision, all of those, never got any of those.
Mm.
So
Yeah, those
that's
are
what I
some
meant when
good
I say
times.
that, from that aspect. Even to this day, I've never had to blow on a cartridge
Oh, for real? I
because
thought
like I said,
everybody did that at one point.
that's what I'm saying. I stopped after Atari 2600.
Mm.
And remember, back then it wasn't called 2600; it was just Atari.
It was just Atari, yup. It wasn't
Exactly.
anything else.
Exactly. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but like I said, me and video games, we've never been like friends. We've spoken to each other in
Mhm.
passing, but we've never like hung out. We hung out initially, but I just didn't like the way they were moving, so I decided not to hang out with video games anymore. So, you know,
Yeah.
but
So,
what I
so
want to question, I think I forgot you were saying something and I cut you off, and I so apologize for that.
that's all right.
But why? What is the correlation? Because I've also noticed being involved in hip hop that a lot, I would have to say, well, maybe not nowadays, but the majority, not even today, the majority of rappers play video games. Like,
I
what's the correlation? Like, why is it so? Why
I
why
think
does it go hand in hand?
I think the correlation comes because if you look at what they're playing, they're either playing fighting games or sports games. And the sports games are so realistic now. Like even the wrestling games, it's almost like you watching an actual game. So I think that's what the attraction is. They get to play their favorite teams from their hometowns,
Yeah.
and I think that's where the correlation with, because you don't find too many rappers being a wizard in a video game. You know,
And at least publicly.
at least publicly. See, I love being a wizard. Lightning, fire, all of that, man. That's
I
my
mean,
thing.
especially if you're in hardcore hip hop and you talk about drug dealing, you can't be a wizard.
Right, you can't be a
You
wizard
can't be a
and
wizard.
in them streets.
You're going to be a wizard when nobody's watching, and
Yup,
and under a screen name that no one will ever figure out.
exactly.
I am 90% sure that there's many out there that's like, out in the streets gang banging, but when they're not gang banging, when they're not in the studio, they are playing these games, going up to these levels that you get to brag about, but never on record. Never on record. I'm I, I'm 99% certain that that's the case with a lot of these people,
Gotta
specifically
be.
in the hardcore aspects of the genre.
Gotta be.
Because, like I said, I've always noticed that even when the Atari days, when even back then, people. I mean, sports was always a thing.
Yeah.
Even Sugar Hill Gang's first record, so I can see the Knicks play basketball. Curtis Blow with they're playing basketball. I mean, so it's like music and sports have always, specifically within Black culture, because either you got a wicked jump shot or you can rhyme. So I, I,
Mhm.
I always understood that. The video games, like I said, I never really understood it only because I never got into it the way all my friends.
Right.
I may have been the only one that didn't. It's just like that time when the karate shows used to come on Saturdays.
Oh yeah.
Everybody was into kung fu fighting. I mean, there's even a
Yeah.
book, kung fu fighting,
Mhm.
and everybody, even if you didn't know how to fight, you were watching the kung fu flicks, which of course led to Wu-Tang Clan because they were
Yeah.
doing it. So it's like, and I do understand the correlation when it comes to things in your childhood. But like I said, the video games was very heavy. My cousins, friends of my block, I used to go to my friend's house because they had video games just to try to get into it and never
Mhm.
being able to because either they were so into it that while I'm trying to compete with them, I couldn't. So I got discouraged and I'm like,
Right.
I don't want to do this. I suck at this. So, but I've always realized that when it comes to hip hop, I mean, there's been so many hip hop inspired games.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
mean, you mentioned Wu Tang. Wu Tang had a game.
yeah.
You know. You also had DJ Hero, where
Yep.
it came with the two turntables
Yes.
and the mixer. That was cool. Um, I
Didn't
mean,
Def
we've
Jam,
always,
didn't Def Jam have a series?
yeah,
I
Fight
forgot.
for New York. I
Yeah.
think,
So yeah, using Def Jam.
yeah, which was a fighting game. Which is, it's like you want to bust somebody's ass. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And
exactly.
you have those bragging rights. And just like with the sports games, it's like if you can't hoop, you can hoop in a video game. You can be whoever you want. You know.
I'm gonna tell you when I stopped playing video games, sports video games. I forgot the name of it was the handheld ones
Oh,
where
I
you
remember
the
those.
flipping lights, the
Yup.
football, and
I had the football one.
I think everybody had football because the baseball was a little more involved. But
Hmm.
you know, that's when I stopped playing video games because even though I was good at that, I mean the advancement of watching a little lights going across the screen to actually seeing people that look like the football players that you see every Sunday on a video screen at home, we've definitely come a long way from when we were kids. And
Yeah, for real.
I mean, we had to use our imaginations. We had to think that that was O.J. Simpson, like running with the little blips, where you can actually see today. I can't. Why I can't think of any football player? But you know what I'm saying. But
Hmm.
the
I get it.
advancement is definitely crazy. Speaking of advancement in technology, when we were coming up, well, I'm a little bit older than you, so I could go back a little further because I used to produce and I used to do music. We used to have to get reels,
Oh yeah.
actually go to the studio to actually do things, and then when things were recorded, then you had to take it to the master and have it mastered, then have it sent to disc makers or whoever to get the vinyl put up,
This
then
makers.
Ye-
Wow.
then to pass it on to the college or the small radio stations, where nowadays you and I can literally, we don't even have to be in the same room. We can actually use what we have now, record a song, and it can be on Spotify within an hour.
Yeah.
Do you think because of that, because we come from a time where anybody that came out when it came to music was good, it's just a matter of whether you liked it or not,
Right.
as compared to there only being, without old asses, only really being like four artists we would willingly listen to. But do you think that because it's so easy to actually get on, and I'm even going to use a correlation with writing as well, because I could just get a free WordPress blog, start writing. Next thing you know, I'm a reporter.
Yeah.
Do you think because of that is the reason why music, sports, well, not necessarily sports, music, journalism, anything that has to do with creativity, that we had to, and like I said, I know we sound like our grandfathers, but remember when we used to walk 3 miles to school? Now y'all can get on the bus. Like, we're at
Hmm.
that stage in our lives where we can actually say that as a matter of fact, to go back a little further, when I started the industry cosign, even before the industry cosign, I had the code. I had to do HTML code
Yeah.
order to publish an article. And if you miss one letter, slash mark, or anything, it messes up the whole
The
format.
whole
You have to
thing,
go
whole
back
page.
and look it over. For a 2 paragraph article, you had to work on it for like an hour and a half to
Yeah.
code it. Nowadays, get on, cut and paste, bang, it's up in 20 minutes.
Yep.
Do you feel like the quality of journalism and music has suffered because of that, or are there other reasons?
Yeah, because I think it suffered because before in our days, um, you had to have more than an inkling of talent. You also had to have drive. You had to have a passion to do it. Um, you see other people who do it better than you, and you wanted to be as good or better than them. Now it's just like if you're lucky, you hit something.
Yeah.
You hit a good story, you make a good song, and by sheer luck, and also, with things being so convenient, you also have a larger number of people coming in.
Yeah.
So with that, most of them are going to be trash. And then, if you're not fatigued by all the trash, you're probably going to miss the good ones. Because, like, when I used to do the Notes from the Underground column, I used to get so many demos. And I listened to it, and most of them were trash, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? I had one guy who didn't even rhyme, he was just talking.
Which
And,
is what they do nowadays. Let me stop. Go ahead.
yeah, pretty much, he'd probably make a hit record now. Um, but yeah, and then by the time I'll be so fatigued and I hear something good, either it would sound so amazing I didn't know what to do with myself, or it'll just be horrible because my ears are numb. So I'd have to put them to the side and say, all right, I'm gonna listen to these again later on. And I think that's the same with the music. Did I say that right? It's the same thing I meant with with the music. Whereas, like, the path to entry is so easy now. You don't have to battle dudes in your crew. You don't have to battle the dopest kid on your block.
You don't even
You
have to leave the
just
house.
you don't even have to leave the house. All you got to do is just say something you think sounds good over a beat that you think is okay, and with so much out of it, something's gonna be catchy. Like I scratch my butt. That'll be,
And with
that'll
the, and with
that
the
could
right
catch on,
baseline, yeah,
right? With a
right
nice bass
baseline.
line. Now, will it be a classic song you want to play at your wedding? Probably not.
Yes, not. Unless you played at your wedding because you created it.
Right?
But yeah, I tell people that and I think also the because at one time I used to call it the microwave era, but that was
Mm,
you know where everything was like our parents used the oven, put care into the food. It took 40 minutes to prepare, then maybe another 40 minutes to actually cook, and then you have to wait 20 minutes for it to cool off, and then another 50 minutes trying to prepare it so that way you can get that nutrition. Then
yeah.
we came to the time where you put it in a box, a TV dinner. Even TV dinners you have to put in the oven. Now you just throw it in the microwave, come up, bang, you just eat it. You know,
Yeah.
using my music analogy, like I said, I think that um, people aren't as appreciative because they don't have to do much.
Mm,
If I'm if I'm an up and coming rapper and I gotta buy my reel, I gotta book the studio time, I have to find somebody to produce it, then I have to find somebody to actually mix it, then I have to find like whatever else I need to make sure everything is correct. I'm putting so much into it. I'm
it
going to
better
want
be
something
good.
for.
Yep.
Like I said, that month process now is like an hour process, and then if I get 10,000 views because I may have said one thing in it that caught on, all of a sudden I'm expecting the world because I got 10,000 views in half an hour.
Hmm.
But the artists that literally even went to school for music, even know how to write and read music and have to do all of that, spend their career being a background singer or, doing things where this one person that can't even speak,
Yeah.
can't even grammatically horrible, making millions. You
Yeah.
know, and the thing is, like that's what we accept nowadays. So I
It
and I
is.
get and I get why like a Samuel L. Jackson was initially mad when rappers were getting roles. So we went from having talent, hustling and talent to if you have a following or if you're involved with something that immediately LL as an actor had a bigger audience than somebody who's been acting for years who went to drama school, who went to college and who studied under greats and did the stage thing and better actor, better performance. But the audience doesn't know who this person is.
Yep.
I know LL because I've seen him in his videos or I heard his music. I'm gonna go not even knowing if he can act. The fact that I know and I need love, so I'm gonna go see this guy because I know he could be a romantic guy because he wrote I need love. So it's like we went from the Motown days where you had to be like, I mean, look at the Jackson Five. Their fathers had them practicing like 90 hours a day, 12
Mhm.
days a week, rehearsing, 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 so that way they could be successful. So now it's like I'm on my computer, I hit something accidentally, and it said, "Oh shit, that sounds good. Let me record it." Bam! Now I just sold 1 million records based on a mistake, and I have no talent.
Yep.
And people wonder why, like, we have the ignorance we have. Like, no disrespect to a sexy red up, like she had a lipstick line or
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was
with
lipstick line with
the
those.
name was
Yeah.
like chlamydia and like really and I'm glad it didn't kick off, but the fact that you had a company that's like, yeah, that can work.
Right.
I'm like, oh my gosh, and some
And
of the things
felt comfortable putting it out there. Like, yeah, this is something I want people to pay their money for and expect money.
and sometimes get it
Yeah.
without having to show their face, and then the artist doesn't even make the money because they signed a deal that put them front and center, that may have given them money up front. The company makes millions, and you make $10,000 for that appearance fee
Mm.
in perpetuity. So this person is going to make money after your grandchildren's grandchildren, and yet you have to start a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the famous Amos thing, which was an honest mistake on his part, where he sold the rights to his name, but didn't make any money after that.
Hmm.
And you would figure that with so many artists having examples of what not to do, no one doing research, or them being so ignorant. When I say ignorant, I don't mean an ignorant mindset, but ignorant to what they
Oh,
could
yeah.
do. Like, I would tell people, like, well, why are these people signing these contracts? I'm like, if you grew up in the projects and the most your parents, and both your parents are on public assistance, and $10 is a lot. When this person is offering you $1,000 to sign this contract, you're already making more than your parents, not
Hmm.
realizing you're signing millions away, because you don't notice you're signing millions away, because that thousand could put more food in your house for the next month than your parents were able to do on their own for a full year. Hell yeah, you're gonna sign that. I mean, look at like the new edition example. When I saw the Biopoc series,
Uh,
and I'm like, wow, they got, but it's like, well, they were poor, they were from the projects. I mean, I think Bobby Brown's mother was selling drugs. I mean, so it's like, if you have the opportunity to make legal money in a way where you don't have to do those things, which is the reason why some of them never left it, because they had to go back. Fetty Wap is a good example. Some people are just dumb. And
yeah.
I don't know him personally, but this man made millions, and he didn't go to jail because of falsely doing something based on this. He went to jail because he was still buying drugs, going on the street, and doing things that you signed that contract to get away from that. I mean, Sean Kingston.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like you're actually making legitimate money. But
Right.
sometimes greed gets in the way, because with Sean Kingston, it was greed. He was still doing shows. Even if he wasn't making money from royalties, he was still doing shows. But he wanted to make the billions he made by making the deals he make, and now it's caught up with him.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, it's like people always wonder why people have this mindset, and it's like, I can understand, because I know some of the people that have done some of the stupid things, and realizing their background and knowing that the public might not know about. So having a little compassion, but still saying that nigga was dumb. I wouldn't have done it. Or when people like when people get extorted,
Yeah.
you're in a position where you may have no other choice. So it's like, well, why would this person have this person get? I mean, there's a lot of seedy characters that make their way around some of these successful artists, and you wonder why. And it's like, well, some of them don't have a choice because they didn't have the people around them, or they're from a neighborhood where that's all they knew. So it's like, sometimes you have to give grace. But like I said, but when it's greed, I don't give grace because it's greed.
Right.
If it's survival, I can understand a little, because sometimes it's survival. Sometimes it's legitimate survival. And like I said, I can speak on that because I know some of the people that did some of the stupid things, not because like they wanted to, but because they felt that they had to, based on the situation they're in.
Mhm.
Especially when you're rolling with a drug dealer who put money up to get you into the position you've gotten, and
Yeah.
now you owe your whole career to this drug dealer who's looking at you like, nah, nigga, you ain't getting off like that. You wouldn't have gotten those millions if it wasn't for my hundreds of thousands in the first place. That seed money that got you to what you've gotten, that shit is still mine. You signed a deal with the devil. So
Yeah.
it's like, when these people don't understand some of the politics, and like I said, I'm not from the streets, but I grew up in the Bronx. I have friends that grew up in those instances. But
Yeah.
I don't
Same
want to give you
here.
too much. Yeah. I just that was at the time. Damn, we've been talking a long time, but like I've always said that I don't want to have a Joe Budden type of podcast where you're on for like 7 hours
I
just,
know, right?
just to break up a conversation to put online of 20 minutes. Let me stop. He's back. He's doing this thing. But I also tell people that, but if the conversation is flowing, and that's the reason why I like doing what I do, because we're having a conversation, and I'm hoping that people are intrigued enough by what we're talking about, as opposed to us trying to think of things to continue the conversation.
Hmm.
I'll be satisfied with a great 20-minute conversation than a 3-hour conversation where I got to look at it like, damn, that was too fucking long, and but more importantly for me, I want to make sure that um, you know, you were able to, at least get some things. Like, is there anything that you're working on? Oh, you know what we didn't talk about?
What's
Your
that?
your tagline, the almost cool dad.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that's one of the things. Like I said, I hate. And like I said, I'll have my notes, but I'll get so much into the conversation, and we go off to different conversations where I'll forget. Like I'll have things like we need to talk about this, we need to talk about that, because like my tagline has always been the all around good guy. You know,
Hmm.
some people always say to me, you're sarcastic. I'm like, good and bad are two different things. I've never said that like I wasn't sarcastic or I've never been bad. I'm an all around good guy when it comes to my ethics and my morals. Now, will I curse
Right.
your ass out? Hell yeah. That doesn't mean that I'm good in that aspect. But like I said, I definitely want to bring that up because that's one of the things I've always. Oh, even you know what? We're gonna take a step before that. Not only black spot, but the black spot. Where did that come from before we get into the almost cool dad?
Uh, well, I always, since I was little, I had trouble fitting in. Was never able to fit in anywhere. But I was cool with everybody.
Yeah.
So when it came to like general shenanigans and stuff like that, it was one of the reasons why I never became a criminal. I just don't have the luck. You know what I'm saying? I don't have the luck for it. And so everywhere I go, I'm like a blemish on whatever they're supposed to be going that they got going on. So I was like, man, I'm like a black spot on all of this. And I figured I'd just roll with that
But why the?
because I'm the only black spot that's
Okay.
in that situation.
No, that's creative because you did it before the weekend.
Oh
Before
yeah.
what's the other singing R&B guy that used the Dream.
Oh, word. I never thought about that.
I'll
Yeah.
say you did it before them, so maybe they read one of your articles. I knew about you and was like, I don't want to be weekend. I want to be the weekend. Yeah,
There
one or
was
two.
some guy named the White Spot. I never got to meet him, but yeah,
Wow,
there was some guy somewhere named the White Spot. I think he did something for Billboard at some point, and I
wow.
was looking for him. Never found him though.
He's probably still hiding because he took your name and made it his. Now the almost cool dad. Why are you the almost cool dad?
That one's really simple. It's just like you can be cool, but you can't be too cool to where the kids think that they can run all over you. So if you're almost cool, you're in that sweet spot,
Yeah.
you know, of like parental and whatever you want to call friend or whatever.
No, that makes sense. But because I know people like they always love the all around good guy. Even though
Yeah,
they speak to me about it. But the one thing, because you remember Gary Lewis? He used to work
sounds
at Vibe.
familiar.
Yeah, he worked at Vibe. He worked at Vanguard. So when I started using the all around good guy as like on my business card, 'cause, we all had business cards back in the days.
Yeah, I know, right?
He said to me, he said that's one of the most genius things I've ever come across. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said all around good guy. He's like, the fact that you call yourself an all around good guy and that could be your moniker, that says a lot about you.
Mm.
He told me that like when I first got my business card, because people would ask me why the all around good, why all around good guy. What ends up happening, I've met women when I would give them my card, they'd be like, "What makes you all around good guy?" So it became a talking point
Ah,
specifically with women, and I've actually gotten dates off of that. I need to find out why you're all around
get
good guy.
out of here.
And I'm like, oh, so it was an icebreaker without me realizing it. And I've never taken a marketing. I wasn't looking at. I was just like everybody had their thing. My thing is like regardless of what I did or what I was doing, I always felt I was an all around good guy, even
Mhm.
when I was being mean in some aspects. Because it's like outside of that, I'm still an all around good guy. So that stuck. And next thing you know, it's like when I started literally getting dates or people even wanting to do business with me because they're like, there must be something to that. And then when people started calling me that in public, people would be like, or people would be like, when you were introduced and people called you all around good guy, I always wondered why people called you all around good guy. So it definitely worked. And like I said, I wasn't trying to do it from a marketing standpoint. So
Right.
when I see that in somebody else, like I said, the almost cool dad, I'm like, I like that because you're right.
Appreciate that.
I'm not a father. One of the only regrets I have in life, but
Hmm.
nobody wanted to create one with me, create a child with me, Lisa. But I always, the thing is, my niece and nephews, ever since they came out of their mother's womb, I put upon them that I was a cool uncle right away. To this day, my niece is going to be 30 soon. To this day, she always referred to me as favorite uncle because I instilled that into my nieces and nephews because I wanted to be the favorite uncle. So, like I said, so the almost cool dad, I get that because I definitely would have been the cool dad if I had children, and I've always appreciated that almost cool moniker because I don't care what they would have said, I was a cool dad. My
Hmm.
with my older brother, my younger brother's children, like he was more stern. So they
Oh,
always
okay.
look at me as the cool uncle because like my brother would yell at them. I'm looking at them like, come on, don't make So they would laugh at me even if they were doing things wrong. They would look at me like, we're not gonna get in trouble with him. We can laugh. Even when we're in trouble, he's not getting. My older brother would be like, "What are y'all doing? On this that? Go this and that." I'm like, "Yo, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that shit around me." So that's why I always loved the almost cool dad. So, but
Thank you.
if there's nothing else, I'm just trying to think. I know there was something that we talked about, and that could open up another Pandora's box.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and I
Yeah.
know
We can
we
do
can
that
talk
one next
again.
time.
Like I said, we can
Yeah.
talk again because, like I said, because that's a nice conversation that I feel that we as not just black men but older black men that we need, and just to give people a clue, you know, Kanye West, um,
Right.
excuse me, yay, but like I said, I still have my notes, but like I do appreciate having the conversation and veering off to the topics that we veered off to because the good thing with speaking to my friends is that we can have those type of conversation and veer off and still have a, as I feel, a good conversation because we're still, talking about something that needs to be heard, and that would give people a different perspective if they heard it from someone else. Because
Yeah.
I've heard people say, you know what, when y'all were talking about this, I didn't realize that until when y'all had that conversation. I'm like, wow, I didn't think of it in that way. So I'm glad that we were able to talk. And thanks again. And if there's any way people can, and I keep forgetting, one thing I keep forgetting to do, I used to do it all the time. It's contact information or social media. I used to have it as a ticker. And sometimes I forget my name where by the time the show starts and I've forgotten, I remember at this point in time. But are there ways anybody that can contact you that you'd
Yeah.
welcome?
You can find me on Facebook at the Black Spot, and you can find me on Instagram at Original Black Spot. So yeah, those two spots there. Hit me up. I talk to everybody.
What about your phone number and address? No, I'm just joking. I'm joking.
My social security number
Right,
is
exactly. And credit card number. Expiration date. But once again, thanks. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you wanting to, you know, speak to me
yeah,
and
no doubt.
hear me.
Fun.
And, Big said industry code sign. As I always say, I dare people to find better friends than me, because if you show me that you have better friends than me, more than likely either I know them and they're my friends, or I will top you by showing you better friends. Once again, the black spot. Thank you, the almost cool dad. Until next time, like I said, we're definitely gonna have another conversation. And as a matter
Oh
of fact,
yeah.
we might do a panel, because I had a brief conversation with somebody about that, and there's
Uh,
somebody else I know I'm going to talk to. Maybe we can just do a panel. I haven't done a panel for this format. I mean, but I think that that's something that can definitely um, be a thing, because, like I said, when I do these things, it's just about the person itself. But that particular topic, we can definitely have a panel, and I'll definitely contact you when we can do it.
yeah, let me know. Let me
Definitely.
know. I'm down for it.
Any and everything you do, good luck. Kiss your
Thank you.
family for me, because I haven't kissed your wife in a while. Please stop. My bad.
I
Um,
swear you get me every time, man.
until next time, big set and Cosign. Um, and we're out. Now, I
Yep.
do this each time when I press the end stream. It might take a minute, but I'm going to continue.